Hey guys! Welcome back to another Art Journal Thursday episode after a little break. Today I'm doing the cheap versus expensive challenge to create these flowers in an ice cream cone. Also, thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video and for supporting this channel. Whether you need a domain, website, or an online store, Squarespace makes it possible. Let's start with the tools I will be using in this video. Usually, I use my watercolor book by Hahnemuhle, watercolor sets by Schmincke and Winsor and Newton, and my brushes by Vinci. And for the challenge, I went out to buy some super cheap supplies in the €1 store, similar to a dollar store, just the European version. I got a set of paints, brushes, and paper for just €1 each, so I spent only €3 for everything. Now, to demonstrate the cheap and the more expensive art supplies next to each other, I will be using my watercolor book and tape one sheet of the cheap paper on the right side of the page. I use washi tape all around the paper because I still haven't decided what I will paint at this point, but in the end I didn't actually need it because I decided to paint this pretty flower bouquet in an ice cream cone that I found on Pinterest, painted by Dasha Lichacheva. I will have the link to her Instagram in the description box down below, so go check it out. When you use watercolors, you want to build up the painting and its intensity by adding one layer after another. So here I started out with creating the first layer of paint for the ice cream cone and then for the flowers, and then let everything dry. After that, I could go back and create shadows and more details using a darker shade of watercolor for each flower. What I like about watercolors is that you can't really control it to 100%. You can lead the paint by moving the water, but it will still do its own magic while it's drying. And you can make the paint look as light and as dark as you want while the paint looks vibrant. It's just so fun to let the paint dance on the watercolor paper. Some of you guys were commenting that you have troubles blending the colors, or that the result looks totally different to mine, or that something didn't work what I showed in the video. And this can have many reasons why it happens. But one of the common reasons I think is that you might use not real watercolor paints. In the beginning, I showed you guys the cheap set of paints. They might look like watercolors because you also activate them with water and they feel a little bit like watercolors, but they're actually not. This is more like a paint box with water activating paint you would use in lower classes in your school. You can paint with them, of course, but you won't achieve the same results as when you would use proper watercolors, so you can't really expect much from them. When I will be painting with the cheap supplies, you will see and understand better what I'm talking about. It's true that you don't have to have expensive art supplies to create art, but it's still important to use the right supplies with good quality, especially when you're just starting out. If you get art supplies that only make you feel frustrated when you are just starting out to learn how to paint with them, you will most likely give up at some point without discovering your full potential. If your paint breaks off and smudges when the paint doesn't cover anything, when your paintbrushes lose their hair all the time that it ruins your painting while you try to get rid of the bristles in your painting, it's not fun at all. And I totally understand your frustration when something doesn't work out. You can make it work with cheap art supplies if you are already familiar how to paint with similar medium, because you have a better understanding of what you're actually doing, so you can always adjust and figure things out. But if you're just starting out, it can be really frustrating. For example, I really like using synthetic brushes by the brand called Vinci because they never lose their hair. They hold its shape and it's just really fun and easy to paint with. It was already something that made the process of painting a little bit more stress-free. Just look for a good brand and get familiar with their supplies by trying out their sets for beginners. They will already be a lot better than a non-name brand that you can buy at the dollar store. And this is the final result after using my more expensive art supplies. Now let's move on to the super cheap art supplies. Okay, the first struggle I had was when I was using the cheap brush I got for €1. The set came with 3 brushes, but it was rather a waste of money. It didn't want to hold its shape, so it was really difficult to create details and painting inside the lines. Whenever I touched the paper, the bristles would just break in, so I had to paint with the whole brush laying on the paper instead of using just the tip to be more accurate. I don't even know why such horrible brushes exist. I mean, I used these brushes when I was a kid, but I was always frustrated with them. But at the time, I didn't know that there was something better out there. Now I will never use these brushes ever again because they are such a pain to use and no fun at all. The paint itself didn't behave as my watercolor sets that I used in the beginning because the paint wouldn't float around and do its magic. The paint felt more dry to me even though I used plenty of water, and as you can see, the paint looks a lot more pale after it was dry. The texture itself looks nice, I think, but it still looks too pale for me. I used the paint the same way as I used my watercolors in the beginning, so I tried really hard to work in layers and darken the paint to somehow magically make the colors look more vibrant, I guess, but it didn't work. Except for the fact that it was really a pain to paint with these cheap brushes and that the colors look really pale compared to the more expensive paints. I was actually happy with the result until I discovered something really frustrating that I really didn't expect. So when I was finished with the painting and wanted to glue the piece of paper into my watercolor book, the paint that I was working so hard to make look more interesting and vibrant and more detailed started to break off and smudge the paper. The paint behaved like chalk that just broke off and smudged everything. At some point I just stopped touching the painting, but this shows that it's so much more difficult to work with this paint in layers without risking the paint to break off. I used the paint the same way as my other watercolors, but it didn't work because this medium didn't behave the same way as proper and more expensive watercolors. And this is why I would really recommend to you guys to invest a little bit more money into your art supplies if you want to have more stress-free and a more fun time creating art. If you want, I can make an extra video with affordable supplies you can use that have a good quality to start out with, so let me know in the comments below if you would be interested in something like that and I can make it happen. Again, a big thank you to today's sponsor, Squarespace.com, for supporting this channel. If you thought about starting your own website or blog where you can express your creativity through words, images, or even sharing your ideas through a shop, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform. It's a great way to jumpstart your dream without having a clue about websites, coding, or whatsoever. They have beautifully designed templates that you can use to create anything you want. From a simple blog, website, to an online shop, anything is possible. And if you have any troubles or if you need help with anything, they also have an award-winning 24/7 customer service that is there for you when you need it, so you never have to feel stressed and lost. So if you're curious and want to finally start your own personal blog or website, check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and if you're ready to launch, simply go to squarespace.com/makoccino to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up to support this channel, it will mean a lot to me. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more arts and crafts related videos in the future and to click on the bell button to get notified whenever I upload a new arts and crafts related video on Thursdays and on Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching, guys, have a wonderful day and I will see you soon. Bye!